Hello, and welcome to our Sewing Sangha. You'll find a series of videos here on how to make a rakusu in the Soto Zen tradition, more specifically in the tradition of Upaya Zen Center and Roshi Joan Halifax's lineage. We'll go through each step in detail to help you create your own rakusu. You might want to like this video and subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so you'll learn when new videos are posted. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the comment section below. We'll do our best to answer them. I'm Cheryl Dyson, and today we'll be going over how to complete the top of the frame of the field of your rakusu. So any links and description will be found in the description below, but let's go to the downward facing camera and let's get started. Okay, so we have quite the milestone here. We have the frame is completed and it's stitched with a slip stitch on both the front and the back. So this is nice and secure and ready. The next step is going to be to put the top of the frame on the top of the rakusu here. So what we have to do first is to assure and to make sure we're leveling the top here and make sure this is a nice straight and crisp line that is the proper distance so that the rakusu will not only hang straight, but then the field of the rakusu, all this work that we've done with the tucks and the strips will show it to its best advantage and show the proper amount, if that makes sense. So I think it'll make sense once we take a look at this. Now, one of the things that we did early on is, if you remember, I used the square of our, my favorite graph paper. Actually, let me grab that here. I have it in the drawer. And when we took this, in order to give you the idea of what this would look like, when it was going to be framed, is to I just used this little square that I cut out of the graph paper that would show the correct measurements. So the measurements that we're going for then are 9 3/4 across and 6 inches, up and down vertically. So what we want to do is this top part is going to be just a little bit kind of raw edges, and this part might be a wee bit too longer than it needs to be. So we can, these have already been fit nice and tight. And so this one we want to be as snug and tight as the other one was as well, but we'll need to measure to be sure so we can trim this if we need to. All right, so we'll move that over. And what I'm going to do, and you can use either a measuring tape or a ruler, and the ruler will come in handy when it's time to draw a line if you need to. And well, we'll draw a line here, and I'm going to measure. So I'm going to take the 6-inch mark of my tape. Okay, and I'm going to line it up right here. Okay. And then I'm going to measure up to see where does 6 inches start. And I find that it starts right there. So I can, oops, I slipped. So what I can do is take either my pencil or the little soap sliver or your tailor's chalk wax and make a little mark here. And you can see that this is where you're going to want your frame to come down and meet at the top. All right, so go ahead and make that same mark by coming up here and making a mark. All right. Then taking a ruler, a nice long ruler for you then, and lining these up. Now, you'll have the advantage over me because right here, I'm looking, there's a camera between me and the fabric, and I'm leaning down and it's a little at an angle. So what you will want to be doing is be sure that you maybe even stand up to do this, or to make sure that you're looking at it straight on so that you're not making, other like too far or too short. And again, you can use our handy graph paper to line up this edge. So I'm going to line up the edge with one of the lines of the graph paper and make sure that I'm at a straight right angle. And often the way to best to do that is to line up the edges of the ruler. All right. So give it a couple of good looks and give it a light mark right across here. Okay, my pen kind of blobbed right there, so don't worry about that. Okay, so then what we're going to want to do, actually another thing to do is we have our the top of the frame, and I've gone ahead and folded it because it's the very same as what we did here. So this is a 4.5 by 14.5 inch strip, and we're going to fold it directly in half and press that. Use the iron and press it. Please use your irons and press these things. Then I'm going to turn in a 1/2 inch on either side. And these little tuck-ins are very important because we don't want any raw edges. This is the edge where you're going to catch your needle and use the thread to join this with the base of the rakusu, and it will avoid any raw edges from showing. And that way we don't have any worries about fraying or that kind of thing. So very same process. So if you don't remember, feel free to go back to the previous video and the fitting video, which would be step 7, part 1. And you'll be able then to recall how to do this. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. So the next part is to be sure that you have a 1/2 inch on this end. We're going to start with that end. And using your seam allowance is a good idea. Using the graph paper is actually a good idea too. Let's give ourselves a little space. And you'll see that the same way we did here, when we took a 1/2 inch with 2 squares and lined up our one edge and lined up the other edge. So this will be a good straight line for you to be able to then make a mark to mark that 1/2 inch. So in my case, I have this marker that works for light color fabric, and you can use your sliver of soap or pencil, and this will be tucked under, so it's not really a big problem if you use the pencil. Okay, so now that I have this folded and ready, and this is marked for where I want that to meet, this is where I want the top of the frame to hit. This is where it belongs, is to go take this piece that has a nice crisp middle fold. That's the important part about ironing. I know she's like, are you going to talk about ironing every time? Well, yes, I am. And I'm going to come up here and really nicely match where that fold is and where and I'm going to pull that down and see that it lands right here. Now, if it doesn't for you, and then the other thing too is that I'm sorry about this, but I cut these off before I should have. And so I didn't get to demonstrate this. But when you do have this, actually, let me grab this guy. This is my old practice rakusu. And you'll see that these guys are sticking out. And for you, you probably have little tails sticking up out of, on top of your rakusu, where the white and then the face. So what we want to do is trim those and trim those even. So as you're trimming it even, you want to pay attention first to how much room is here for between our line here and the top. And it should be exactly the same as your the fabric you're going to have here. And that'll be 1 3/4. Okay. So because 1 3/4 minus the half inch in the cut in half, and that's what you're left with, right? So I want to make sure that when I do 1 3/4 right here, that it comes right to the white. So let me see if I can maybe pull this up a little bit to be more visible. Okay, so you see where 1 3/4 to the 0, and that's going to be the length that you want. Now, if you don't have that length, if it's a little more than that, then absolutely feel free, and you should trim the whole thing off. And you can either use a ruler like this, or you can, if you've used a cutting mat with a rotary cutter, then it's like easy peasy. If not, then have your scissors, then you'll want to mark with a ruler, and then mark that with your pen or pencil, and then cut with your scissors, and make sure that you have that very nice and straight. Okay, so, and again, you'll be looking at making sure that you're measuring from the 6 inch line here to 1 3/4 inches at the edge of the top of your rakusu. So it may be that you only need that for these top little tabs. Excuse me. So these little tabs, then, so again, I can line that right up with my graph paper. And if these are sticking out, then I can mark them and cut them off. And if the white part is too long, then just mark that. It might just be 1/4 inch. But that extra little trim is really going to be helpful. It'll make that fitting the top in a lot easier, and you're really going to be able to get it right in there. Because if you have extra fabric up here, then it's not going to really want to sit properly. It won't give you a nice crisp line at the top. And we want that. We want it to, because that helps it to hang properly when you're wearing it. And so we want it to be a really nice tight fit and a good fit. So as you're taking a look at that, if you wind up with questions about that, please let me know, and I can certainly help you with that. We can maybe even do a one-on-one Zoom call to help you take a look at those measurements. So trying not to overcomplicate things, and yet I think that little detail is a very helpful one for getting that good fit on the top of your frame here. Right, so then the next thing we're going to do is, now that we have measured and we're assured of the fit of the top, then I'm going to go through and pull this down a little bit. And I'm going to line this up with a 1/2 inch seam allowance here on the left side here, and pulling it way up to the edge and making sure that it's right at that edge, and then rolling this over and making sure that this edge matches this. All right. And when you've done that, especially when you've trimmed this nice and even and exactly the right width, right height, then see how nicely it just wants to lay flat. And that's what we're looking for. And you'll see that we've covered that line that we made. So we have now the appropriate size for the width and height of the field that we'll be showing. All right. Then we're going to pin this in place. And really make sure that it stays put, because they might want to wander off. The more layers of fabric to go through here too, so getting these nice big pins in here is good. That should do it. All right. So as you can see, we have, actually this one could go just a little bit over. Because sometimes when you pick it up to put the pin in, the fabric will shift just a tiny bit. There we go. Not bad, not bad at all. All right. Then the last thing we want to do is to measure a half an inch on this side. And you'll notice too that they've been generous on some of these strips just to be able to accommodate any, any bobbles or any whatever. And so it's a good idea that they were a little bit generous for the measurements. So now though, we can come through and say, have that half inch be trimmed off on this side. And again, using our nice graph paper, I can line up the line right here. And here's our overage. And remembering that 2 squares equal a half an inch. Each square is a 1/4 inch, of course. And I can put my straight edge right here. Oops. It's a little hard to work out how to hold these for demonstration purposes. Maybe like that. All right. You're making sure that my line is straight and it's lined up, because it's so easy to get them off kilter. And we want the Rakusu to be straight and then this to be straight. So I'm going to hold it down and give it just a little mark. Right. So again, you'll be using your soap or tailor's chalk or a white pencil, whatever marking tool you've decided on, and be able to mark these to be able to use the to have that information for yourself there. All right, so we'll put that down, and you'll be, the first thing will be to baste this together, and then you're going to use your slip stitch and then finally finish at the end. But what I'm going to do at this juncture is that I'm going to leave you now and move on to the sew along video. So actually I could cut this guy off, couldn't I? And there we go. So we're going to leave you here. And if you are confident, certainly go right ahead and baste the side and along the front, turning this in as you go, and then do a slip stitch in order to close the gap. So this will be one that that's a good idea. Let me show you this before I go and leave you on your own. We have to do this Rakusu ourselves, but we can't do it alone. We need help. We need friends on the path. There we go. See how I just tucked that in? Actually, let me unfurl that and we'll do it again. All right, so let's tuck him in. You could go either front or back, but tuck him in like that to cover that white piece and overlap our little pink area here. So now tuck that in and then tuck him in as well. And what you'll have is a nice smooth edge. So I've got layers here and layers here. But what I'll wind up doing is I will close this with the slip stitch. And, I'll probably be fussing with this to turn it in just a wee bit more. How did that work? And to make sure it's, oh yeah, nice, nice. So we'll have that like that. So we'll definitely have, we'll be catching the edges with the slip stitch and then doing just either a slip stitch or just a whip stitch for this. And I'll show you that when I do the sew along. So there we go. So that should give you your start. All right. So, baste and then use the slip stitch to attach. So that's it for today. And what we'll be looking for the sew along video that will actually go through real time doing the basting stitch and then the slip stitch front and back. And don't forget the back. And you'll have a real time video that you can use as an accompaniment for completing the top of the frame. All right. So thank you for listening. And if you do have questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you'll get notifications. And do check for the sew along video for the top of the frame, and you'll have more detail available for you. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.